My name's Tom Nagelmeyer. I am a product marketer at Broadcom, and welcome to this session, 10 Innovations in Storage and Disaster Recovery for VMware Cloud Foundation. I am joined today by my two colleagues and co-presenters, Sue and Yumi. So why don't we go ahead and get started? This is the obligatory disclaimer. I feel like the stewardess that's telling you how to buckle your seatbelt for the 5,000th time, so we're going to move on from this as quickly as possible. So this slide serves as both an agenda slide as well as the first slide of our presentation. So our agenda, if you follow this green row right here, this light green row, these are the innovations we're going to discuss over the next 45 minutes. We're going to start with storage, and then we're going to focus on data services, and we're going to close up with data protection and cyber resilience. So let's get started with our vision. Our vision for storage and data for your private cloud is a unified, ubiquitous storage platform that runs anywhere you need infrastructure, that delivers the performance, resiliency, and scale that you need for the modern enterprise with consistent data services regardless of where that infrastructure is deployed. Now, I know that you probably hear this pitch from all of your storage vendors, and so you're probably thinking, well, what makes that unique? And for us, first off, it's the full integration with the VCF stack. That green line right there, enable the fully integrated services, the ability to take that storage infrastructure and to make it available for your end user consumers to enable developer self-service and multi-tenancy. We hear over and over from customers that a ticket-based system to provision this infrastructure, to provision block storage, to provision object storage, is a hindrance in their operations, and they need to accelerate application development. So that is what we are going to deliver to you. And of course, the cyber threat landscape only continues to get more sophisticated, so you need something that is secure and able to help you recover if and when an attack happens. And that is something that we believe that we can uniquely do for your VMware-based workloads. And so what are the outcomes? Why would you choose our vision instead of, say, picking a point solution here and a point solution there and cobbling something together? Well, we believe that these are the outcomes that you can achieve from our vision. A 34% reduction in storage TCO. This is delivered by VMware vSAN. We have a unique software-defined storage that helps you lower both your CapEx as well as your operational expenses. On the CapEx side, it's delivered through those industry standard servers, that lower cost per terabyte that you get from rehydrating those servers with storage instead of using those traditional arrays, and the lower OpEx, the unique integration that we enable through VCF, accelerating the deployment and the management of your storage infrastructure and making it available to those developers and lowering the amount of time you spend managing storage and making it available to those end user consumers. Also, faster time to market for those applications. Businesses are only becoming more digital. The application development cycles need to come down. The time to create those needs to come down. With our solution, much faster, 90% faster time to market for those applications. And if and when an unplanned outage happens, either from a cyber event or just a regular disaster scenario, we have a solution in place to help you recover faster. If you talk to other storage operators, they'll have cyber recovery guarantees. And then you dig into those and you're like, okay, so you're going to deliver me a clean array, and then we're going to come up with a plan together as how we're going to fix this. In our vision, we have a ready-made solution. We have a cyber resilient solution ready there day one so that you can take advantage of those workflows and get things done. So let's focus, now that we're done with the introduction, let's focus on the storage side, right? We know that you guys have a lot of storage challenges. I hear it all the time from customers. I hear it all the time from the analysts. Data growth, capacity needs are only accelerating. Next generation workloads, predictive AI, generative AI, consume massive amounts of data, and you have to store and protect all of that data. Data growth is far outpacing IT budget growth, and so that is going to remain a challenge. Scalability and performance. You need highly performant infrastructure anywhere. And when we talk about scale, intuitively we think of large scale. How big can I make a vSAN cluster? But it also cuts the other way. I need to put infrastructure everywhere. How small can it go? With vSAN, 2 nodes plus a witness. It can fit in a backpack. You can throw it out of a C-130 if you're the DoD, and you can still run that infrastructure. You need to support next-generation applications wherever they're deployed, increasingly at the edge with that performance and resilience that you demand from your storage infrastructure, the same kind that you would get in your core data center. And you need it protected from sophisticated cyber threats. So our solution to this, VMware vSAN. And if you haven't heard of some of the latest innovations we've put in vSAN, let me introduce you to Express Storage Architecture. If you're on the original storage architecture and you have not moved to ESA, you are missing out on some of the most critical innovations VMware's put out there in storage in over a decade. 4x the performance of the original storage architecture, up to 300,000 IOPS per node and consistent performance even at peak conditions, extremely low latency. You're missing out on the additional capacity utilization that you're going to get from ESA, because at ESA, every single device contributes to capacity. There is no longer a cache tier and a capacity tier. Every single device contributes. We've got better compression. We introduced vSAN global deduplication with VCF 9.0. So when you're looking at something like a vSAN storage cluster, you can put 350 physical terabytes per node raw into a host. Conservatively, you can multiply that by 4 with deduplication and compression. So now you've got almost a petabyte of capacity per server. We can certainly scale up with vSAN and meet all of those needs. And of course, important for this conversation around cyber resiliency, vSAN ESA introduced a new snapshot engine inside of it, highly performant, and we've continued to build on that through each subsequent release since vSAN 8. And finally, I do want to also mention disaggregation. This has been a long time ask from our vSAN customers. They said, hey, vSAN's great, but not all of my workloads are going to scale in an economical fashion where I'm scaling compute and storage in tandem. Can you help me disaggregate? 2 years ago, we introduced something called vSAN Max. Sad to say, we had to get rid of the vSAN Max brand. It's now called vSAN Storage Clusters, but the capability remains the same. Scaling compute and storage separately while still scaling storage capacity and performance with each node. Scaling up to 24 nodes and 8 petabytes of raw capacity. Do the math with the roughly 4x increase with the deduplication and compression from storage efficiency. You're looking at 32 petabytes of storage per cluster that could be available to you. So let's switch gears a little bit and let's focus on the data protection. So this is going to be critical for the later part, for Yumi's part of the presentation. Here's some of the innovation that we delivered with VCF 9.0. In vSAN 8, we introduced that native snapshot engine. vSAN 8 Update 3, we introduced the vSAN data protection, which has a built-in snapshot manager. And with a simple workflow, you can protect your VMs. You can assign them to a protection group, minimum of 2 VMs, and you can assign policies to them. How often do I want to take a snapshot for this protection group? Which snapshots do I want to retain? How often do I want to retain them? Do I want to make these immutable? A very simple workflow. With VCF 9.0, we introduced replication to that workflow. So after you've selected your snapshot and data protection policies, you can decide, I want to replicate this to this recovery target. Now, this is a flexible replication solution. You can replica a 4-node HCI cluster to a vSAN storage cluster, and you can replicate multiple HCI clusters or storage clusters to a single DR or recovery cluster. So it's very flexible, and it takes advantage of the advanced vSphere replication, which enables us to do a couple things. First, we can offer you full VM autonomy. There's a complete replica of the VM. We're not just replicating snapshots, we're replicating the full VM to the recovery site, which gives us a lot of flexibility, and VLR is going to leverage that in the later part of this presentation. It also enables us to have very low RPO times with as low as 1-minute RPOs, and there's no need to snapshot at the source if you so choose. Some other innovations I like to highlight here at the storage layer, you probably heard about this at general session, we'll just reiterate. We're announcing vSAN native S3 object storage. So this is going to deliver a unified native vSAN storage for block, file, and object, and it will all be multi-tenant out of the box, consumable by end user developers through VCF automation. Initially, we are targeting the DevOps use case, and we're going to deliver all of the APIs required for that use case with a vision to the future and looking at, can we deliver this, can we expand these use cases to backup, disaster recovery, and cyber resilience with object storage. And a little bit of a sneak peek to the future. We're also looking at some additional capabilities. We constantly have an eye on the market, and these are some planned capabilities for vSAN down the road. With vSAN Express Storage Architecture today, you have a selection of TLC devices that you can run, either mixed use or read-intensive devices. But we know that the market continues to evolve, and we're starting to see greater demand for QLC devices. So we're taking a look at that. It's something that would help us lower that cost per terabyte, give us a more optimized solution for secondary storage recovery use cases. So that's something that we're considering. Something else that we're considering is switching up or modifying our compression algorithms. We're very happy with our compression algorithm today. And if you look at the blogs that we've published just very recently on the storage reduction of us versus a competing storage array, we can actually meet or sometimes even exceed the data reduction given our global deduplication and our replication. But we're constantly reevaluating. We're thinking, can we add, we have a very flexible architecture with ESA. Can we modify that? Can we add another compression algorithm? Can we optimize it based on the workload? So can we wring out even greater efficiency in the future? And finally, we continue to innovate on vSAN storage clusters. Today, you can use vSAN storage clusters in VCF, but in the future, we've heard from our customers, we want to be able to have a very large centralized pool of capacity. We want to share it across multiple workload domains in VCF. Our goal is to make that happen soon. And what does that all add up to? We want to extend vSAN from the primary storage use case it has today and bring that same performance, but also a cost-effective vSAN to secondary storage. Your secondary storage is probably, there has not been nearly the amount of innovation in secondary storage, I would argue, as there has been in primary storage. Secondary storage still mainly legacy spinning disks. It's still largely a scale-up architecture. We're going to bring a cost-effective vSAN to address some of these secondary storage use cases with a modern scale-out architecture. Accelerated recovery with these devices, with TLC devices, with QLC devices, high-performance restores that is going to smoke anything in the market today. And we're going to do it with a lower cost thanks to our unique licensing model. With vSAN's 1 TB per core that you get with the VCF licensing model, and you think about how much more you can cram into that with global dedupe and how much more you can cram into that with our advanced compression, that's a very generous licensing. So we have done an internal analysis, and we believe that we can offer you a lower cost secondary storage target with vSAN today with TLC devices on a like-for-like basis. And we look to further optimize that in the future. And with that, I'll now be joined by Sue.
A little close to the speakers there. All right, thank you. Hey there, good morning. I'm Sue Eulens. I'm also in the product marketing team for VCF, and I focus primarily on data services. Data Services Manager has been part of the suite of solutions for a little while. And what does it really address? The biggest challenges that customers have with the storage that Tom is talking about is that it's filling up primarily with database. It's the core need for developers and users of all types within an organization. What kind of problems do they really have? Well, previously we would have almost exclusively commercial databases, but there's a big shift in the market. People are still using commercial databases, but open source is really becoming a major issue. And that opens up a whole bunch of questions. How do we consistently apply policies to open source and commercial? How do we have the right people consistently being able to have the skill sets to apply consistent issues or consistent policies to those databases, right? Lines of business and app teams, they are sick of, like Tom said, putting in a ticket. They don't want to wait. They need to get their applications moving quickly. They need to ensure that they can get a database as a service provisioned like that, as soon as they need it so that they can get their applications up and running. And that's really where that 90% comes from that we'll talk to a little bit later. A little bit faster to make sure that your organization can do their business much more quickly. So how do we do that? As we move down that green bar for database services, we're looking at Data Services Manager, which is also part of the VCF infrastructure. It's integrated fully into the VCF UI, and you probably saw if you went to the main presentation this morning, the keynote, that we are now part of that entire UI. That means that it makes it very easy for people to come in, create databases, provision them consistently, and make that available. So really, 3 key benefits here. Simplify and streamline the management of open source as well as commercial databases. Simplify the entire life cycle. So first, once you have to get the databases provisioned, once you have them, you need to ensure that they're consistently handled from day 0 to day 2. Day 0 provision, day 2, we're running backups, restores, clones, expansions, changes, patches, all of those things that can be very manual for your IT administrators. And they need to be consistently applied. But also, one of the most important things that I think people really come to this product for are that ability for your application teams and others to provision as a service. So go to a central repository, turn on a new database, and you're good to go. So really, the 2 key areas, operationally, that is data services and seamless integration with VCF. That speaks to consistently ensuring that you have hardened your infrastructure for your databases so that they're always the same, always patched properly, always available, always backed up. All of those things are done at a very large scale. So we can operationalize them for any IT team that needs to take advantage of databases that maybe they haven't really worked with in the past. Maybe they've mostly done commercial databases in the past. Now, as with the advent of more open source, we can actually ensure that IT teams feel very confident in making these databases strong, hardened, available, and protected. So when we do this fleet management, it's straight out of the box within VCF. You go into the data services area, and you can create all of those policies and apply them across the board. Seamless integration with VCF. We use VCF automation for self-service and multi-tenancy. So what we can allow your application developers to do is go in, ask for a database, have it provisioned, and you're good to go. So what's new with our innovations here? Up to this point, we've been able to do PostgreSQL, MySQL, and be able to do all the things I've just talked to you about, the database as a service, the provisioning, all of the patching and things that we've been talking about. However, now in a tech preview, right, as we speak, we've got Microsoft SQL Server. So we're moving into that commercial database space. And the one database that people came to us the most consistently was Microsoft SQL Server. And so we have customers actively doing testing on it right now, and you're going to see that opening up very, very quickly. But as we move forward, our vision is really to go into cloud native with object storage as well. So we're moving later on possibly into the streaming services and things like that. But what we're going to next after this commercial database initially is to go into native object storage. So really, sorry, I'm going to actually move forward to a story. Whoop. And that one was not part of the presentation, my apologies. So really, one thing I'm going to tell you about is one use case that I was thinking we might have a slide for, but it's just as good of a story without it. When we were acquired by Broadcom, Broadcom had a significant number of databases. Of course, they had to integrate from VMware into the Broadcom world. And our IT department is called GTO. GTO as an organization needed to bring in and consistently apply a variety of databases from all their different acquisitions, including VMware. And they decided to operationalize based on this data services product. And over the course of 6 weeks, not 6 months, but 6 weeks, they were able to complete a great deal of that implementation, that integration, and they estimated that they saved about $10 million in the process to consistently allow for all of these databases to be working well together and playing nice. So it's always great to have we drink our own Kool-Aid, we drink our own champagne concept and story because we really trust and use this all the time. Our database and our applications developers use this as a database as a service solution inside Broadcom. So with that, I am actually going to move forward and invite you up on the stage. Thank you so much. Pardon me.
Thanks, Sue. Another critical area of investment for us and a set of services that we're delivering through VMware Cloud Foundation is around data protection and cyber resilience, which is clearly top of mind for a lot of organizations today. And what we're delivering through this is backed by powerful storage that's secure. It enables that long history of immutable snapshots that are critical for the ransomware recovery use case. And we also enable this with a fully automated end-to-end cyber recovery workflow that builds in a lot of the critical components to recover from the modern forms of malware today, which include built-in isolated clean rooms, the ability to use next-gen AV and behavioral analysis to validate the restore points to make sure that they're free of not just traditional malware, but also fileless malware. And then finally, when it comes to disaster recovery, we have a full-featured disaster recovery solution that does orchestration at enterprise scale. And if you're familiar with the offer, this is delivered through VMware Live Recovery today. So what is the problem that we're solving for? Cyber threats have clearly been on the rise. We hear about it almost on a daily basis. And they've become much more sophisticated in their nature, and they have been more detrimental in terms of the damages that they cause. They bring down critical infrastructure, they impact patient lives, and it takes months for organizations to recover from the ransomware attacks these days. And so there are a couple of reasons for this, right? But the first one is that the nature of the malware has evolved over time. Whereas the malware in the past were mostly file-based, nowadays most of the attacks are fileless. And so they work in memory, they go after legitimate programs and protocols, and they move laterally within your environment, and they're incredibly hard to detect, which makes recovery a lot harder. And when we look at the solutions that are out there in the market today, they treat DR and cyber recovery very similarly, or they try to retrofit a DR solution to fit the cyber recovery use case, but they are not the same at all. Because for disaster recovery, you know exactly when that disaster occurred, and therefore which point in time to roll back to. But cyber recovery these days, because malware tends to dwell in your environment for extended periods of time, is a much more involved process. And most of you probably have immutable snapshots, and they are definitely a critical component to cyber recovery, but it is not sufficient to recover from the modern forms of ransomware. And this is because in order to recover from ransomware these days, you can't just scan offline backups with traditional file scanning tools. You need to power on the VM, run it in an isolated clean room, and leverage next-gen AV and behavioral analysis to observe how that workload behaves in order to identify and detect the fileless malware. And you need that isolated clean room because the malware can remain dormant in your environment and reactivate itself when you're trying to recover your restore points. And so you need that isolated environment that's cut off from your external network, and you need microsegmentation to prevent lateral spread of that malware across the environment. When we talk to customers, they say that just for the recovery process itself, they're using on average 15 different tools and that they're manually stitching this all together. And the end result of this is that the recovery times are lengthened and it introduces room for human error. And so a lot of our customers tell us that their current recovery solution actually does not work when the ransomware attack hits. And then finally, when you're testing your recovery plan, which is critical to ensure that your recovery plan actually works, it can be a very disruptive process. So when we ask our customers, very few customers actually do the testing on a regular basis. And then furthermore, for the ransomware recovery process, it's naturally an iterative process because you're trying to balance finding the restore point that is clean, but then also trying to minimize data loss. So it's more of an art than a science, and therefore it requires a lot of iterations. And the problem with the traditional approaches is that because it requires data rehydration and VM format conversions when you're powering on those VMs, this can be a very slow process as well. And so this is obvious probably to most people, but cyber resilience isn't just about security, right? This is the NIST framework. The first 3 stages are all about prevention: identify, protect, and detect. And this is an area where the security team plays a key role, but it's critical to have the last 2 stages of response and recovery as well, making sure that you have that robust recovery plan. And this is very much where the infrastructure team plays a critical role because you need to stand up that recovery infrastructure and work closely with your security team to identify the clean restore point. And so the solution that we have with VMware Live Recovery today, it brings together all of these different components. So what we have is an end-to-end ransomware recovery workflow. On the left-hand side, you have the production site that you're protecting. And in the cloud-based solution that we have today, you're replicating those workloads onto a cloud-based file system. And then when a ransomware attack occurs, you can invoke the ransomware recovery workflow. In the cloud, it's a just-in-time provisioning of the infrastructure, so you can provision that infrastructure on demand. Or we have the option of a pilot-light deployment mode where you're pre-provisioning a small footprint of infrastructure to speed up the provisioning time. And then we embed next-gen AV and behavioral analysis. So once you select the restore point candidate, which we also aid you with because we show it along a snapshot history timeline, along with data change and file entropy metrics, so you can see where the encryption event might have occurred. So once you select that restore point, you can power that on into the isolated clean room and leverage the next-gen AV that we've built into the solution, and it automatically installs the security sensor. We run the VM, it observes how it behaves, and if it finds anything, then it generates a security alert all within the same UI. And the way we enable you, the infrastructure team, to collaborate with the security team is that the security team can view all of this in the same UI or go into the security console to access and do a deep dive analysis on the security alert. And we have badging capabilities to help you home in on the best restore point together. And so what we announced with 9.0 is an on-prem VMware validated solution, because we have heard from a lot of customers that due to privacy or data sovereignty requirements, they would like to have a recovery solution that can be done on premises. And so we have this VMware validated solution where same concept, right? You have the production site with the virtual machines that you're protecting. And then we have the recovery site that can be stood up. It's a prescriptive clean room that is based on VMware Cloud Foundation. You can build in the network isolation and the air gapping. And you can also leverage EDRs for that behavioral analysis to validate the restore points. And so what we've planned for the future that we've announced at Explore today is this concept of an integrated on-premises cyber recovery, because we're taking that VMware validated solution further, and similar to how it works in the cloud today, integrating it with that ransomware recovery workflow that we have so that we can guide customers step by step through that ransomware recovery process. The EDR will be built into the workflow as well. And then all of this will be supported by the space-efficient vSAN that Tom was talking about, that is enabled by the next-gen compression. And we'll also be enabling multi-tenancy for the disaster recovery use case as well, where users will be able to self-service access the data protection capabilities that we're offering. And so just to sum it up, our vision for storage and data with VMware Cloud Foundation, we have different components to it, but it's underpinned by the storage vSAN that is scalable, that is performant, secure, and low cost. And through that, we're surfacing a number of different services around storage, around data services, and also data protection and cyber resilience. And all of this is surfaced with self-service and multi-tenancy. And so to learn more, please visit our website. These are our product pages, so vSAN, Data Services Manager, and VMware Live Recovery. Please take our survey and let us know how we did. And thank you for joining us today.